Let's work on styling our navigation. Right now, what we have is an unordered list that has links in it. These are local links to our other pages. And notice how they're exactly the same on every page. They're in the same order, they have the same words, and they're in the same location. And now as we set the style, since we're using a common style sheet, it will make the changes to all of them. Well, first off, I want to move that navigation down below this image. This image is currently floating, so everything below it is moving up. And I want that for the heading, I want that to be the case, but I want the nav to be below it. So I'm going to go and create a style rule for the nav, and I'm going to set the clear property. I'm going to set it to both because I don't want it to float either left or right. So I'm going to set the clear property, which forces that element not to float. There we go. So we're making progress already. Now I want to make some changes to the list. Now there are some things, I only want to change the list that's in the nav, so I'm going to do the nav UL so that if I have other lists somewhere else on the website, they won't be impacted by these changes. So there are a couple things. One is that lists come with their own set of padding and margins, and these vary from browser to browser. So it's really a good idea to just get rid of it altogether. So you're starting with 0 and then you can add whatever you want. So I'm going to do that, and we'll see that we can change. It changes a little bit in the movement. All right, so it moved a little to the left. Now I also want to get rid of the bullets. And so the way I do that is with list style, and I'm going to set it to none. And there you go. So now I have no bullets or margin or padding, and that just gets me set up to be able to add whatever style I want. Now what's on this list is there are LI elements in the list, and inside each LI element is an A link. And this is the part that I'm going to be styling, is that A link. And I don't want to change the ones that are outside the nav. So again, I'm going to use nav space A, and this says any A element inside the nav element will get this style. And one of the things we can do is we can put a border around it. So let's just go ahead and do a border. I want it to be, I'm just going to keep it really small and solid and give it a color. And I want it to be a dark color, but instead of going black, I'm just going to go to my main color and get the very darkest version of it. And that gives it that color. And then I go back and refresh it. And now I've got borders around them. I think I want it a little bit bigger than that, so I'm going to make it 2 pixels. Okay, so I have borders around them. Look how small the A tags are. They're just really, really small. So one of the first things we want to do is make them bigger. There are several ways to make them bigger. One way is to add padding. So if I just remember that padding is the space between the content and the border. And so I can add padding, and so 12 pixels, and that'll add it on all 4 sides, top, right, bottom, left. Oh, now look how messy that is. And this has to do with, it's put padding around each one, but these are, an A tag is an inline element. That means it doesn't stand on itself, it just bumps up against each other. So if I need to change that to be able to work with the A tag in the way I want and to be able to do things with it I don't expect, I need to change the display property. So I'm going to set the display property to block. And this allows me to do lots of things with an A tag that I normally can't. I can give it a height and a width, and I can give it padding that actually holds it in place. So I save that and refresh. And now I'm displaying those links as I'm displaying them as block elements. Notice that the borders double up where they join together. So it's like, oh, I don't really want to do that. But if I just do the border, so I can do them individually. So I put border bottom. And now it goes under them, and that's one way to have it, is just with it below. But if I do that, I really want one right across the top as well. But if I put it on top on all of them, then again we get that double border. So now I only want to do it to the first one. one way to do this is to do the nav and then find an LI that is the first child. Okay, so in our list, remember that there are 4 children in the UL. Okay, I've got 4 LIs. This selector picks the first one. So I'm going to go inside, I want the LI that's a first child, and then I'm going to target the A tag that's in that first child. And on here, I'm going to put a border top. And I'm going to make it exactly like this one. I refresh. And there I get a border across the top. Now if I want borders down the side, I can get those as well. Again, I'm going to do this, I'm going to copy it, but I'm going to do it I'm going to do a border right. And a border left. And there I have a simple vertical nav that has borders around it. Okay, so there's a simple vertical nav. Okay, now notice how this nav is resizing. This is one thing in the style sheet that may be different than what you've seen before, and that is on the body, instead of putting a width, I've put a max width. So sometimes I've just put a width, and then when I resize, it keeps everything at 820, and as soon as I get less than that, it drops and puts a scroll bar on it. All right, so then you see that that list is moving over. So one way to change it so that things resize as you do that is to put, instead of a width on there, you put a max width. And that means it will never go bigger than 820. So as it gets bigger, it stays at that 820 pixels, and it's happy to do that. But as it gets smaller, notice that it resizes. Okay, so no, we're not getting a scroll bar down here, and things are moving. It's allowing that body to be a smaller width. Okay? But again, the max it can go is 820. So once it gets to 820 pixels, it doesn't get any wider, but it gets less wide, which is helpful. Now I can do things to this. Now I can play with this header and with this navigation however I want. I can say, oh, you know what? It would really look nice to center that. So how about if we do text align center? Right, so maybe I like that. Maybe I like it left, and so I want to leave it left. What are other things I can do? I can put a background color. I can say, oh, you know, how about if we make it a background color and come up with one of our secondary colors for the background? And there I get a background color. Lost my A-link color. So let's go ahead and notice that it's just the same default color that is in the text, but obviously I'm going to need something different here. So I can do color and pick up again, go to primary color and pick up. I'm having a hard time deciding which one I want. Let's see how this one works. Okay, I can see it. It's pretty light. Let's go ahead and pick a darker one. Another thing that I want to do is, now notice that that's the color on hover of the regular A-link. So nothing's happening on hover, it's going to that same color, so you don't see a change. So another thing I can do is, let's see, oh, I want to make this text a little bit bolder. So text, no, font weight, I want it to be bold. And here now you just start playing with the style to see what you want to get it as. But what about on that hover? Let's get something happening on hover so we know we're hitting that. So I'm going to do nav A hover, and I don't want to change this for the other ones. That's why I put it inside the A. But let's go ahead and change the background color. So instead of having it be this, let's change it to the other secondary color. And there we can refresh. And now when we hover, the background changes color. Lots of things that you can do here. You can round borders. So border radius. Oops. You can do it on all of them, right? So I could do 12 pixels on all of them. And now as it goes smaller, you still see the radius on them. Or you can say, you know what, I don't want it on all of them. Now remember, this goes top, right, bottom, left. So I can say I want my top to be 0, that's top left, right, bottom, and left. So I can say all of those. And there, now just the top right one is the only one that does. Anyway, lots of things you can do with a vertical nav. And works really well when the window is small. Now this navigation is pretty boldly colored, and you might decide you want something more subtle. So there's lots of changes we can make, starting with the background color. So we can make it more blend with the background and see if we get a more subtle look that way. So we start with the background color. And say, okay, that's really dark, so let's go with a lighter one of the colors. All right, so there we have something quite a bit lighter, and now the yellow for sure doesn't fit as you hover, and we can simply just go with a slightly darker one. And there we have something that isn't as striking, doesn't stand out quite as much. And so you can go more and more subtle, lighter colors or colors that blend in different, and just keep it as subtle as you want. I'm also going to get rid of that radius and just have it be a nice And since we have a common style sheet, so we have the same style sheet linked to all of the pages on our website, our navigation, all the style that we have added has been applied to every page in our website.